Hey everyone, hope you're all doing okay. It's Jay here from Just Technics. First things first, before I jump into any of this, Happy New Year to everyone that's been watching. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers on the channel. Can't believe it. It really is absolutely mad. Thank you all so much for all your continued support. I hope you had a really nice Christmas and a very happy New Year break to you all as well. And I hope this year is better than last year for you all. And I'm really hoping that this year is going to be a little bit different to what I'm used to for the last 8-9 years of working on solely on these self-employed. So it's getting worse and worse. But it begins with this pair here. So backstory with these 1210 Mark IIs. First things first, the reason you can't see both of these clearer in shot is because I've got my camera, well, my phone is slightly lower on one of my workbenches at the moment, so I can actually look at the screen while I'm talking to you. So I know that things are in shot. Then when I work on them individually anyway. Like now, you can see it's clear. So we'll do one, then we'll do the other, then I'll strip them both down. So these are being stripped down in this video. So without me waffling on, this pair were dropped off by my customer the Saturday before Christmas last year, 2025. They were recently serviced by another company, a very well-known business I may add as well, and I'm not particularly impressed. I'm actually pretty pissed off, to be honest. They charge the same amount of money as I do, and they have done the bare minimum of work. And it really rattles me. Trust me, guys, I would love to tell you all who these guys are, because they are very, very well known. And yeah, I've taken their service sticker or whatever it is off the sides. That's the only thing I'm going to say. They put stickers on the sides of the decks or the fronts normally as well, if they supply or service them. That's all I'm going to say. But either way, it is disgusting. I'm not going to go into any further detail of the company or anything at all, all right? But they've charged the same amount of money as what I charge. They've done the bare minimum with these turntables, and they haven't serviced them. Surprise, surprise. So customers dropped these off to the shop back in the summer of 2025. So again, this is not long ago at all, really. It's last summer. So, and bearing in mind, he dropped them off to me at Christmas of the same year, right? You shouldn't be taking them anywhere really after you've had them serviced. But he apparently waited, I think he said 7 weeks for them. They told him a couple of weeks, didn't really give him any information, were very vague with him. And I think he said he had to chase them up. And then in the end, he went to go and get them when the work was completed and got them back. The plimps apparently haven't been touched. They're filthy and they do look very dirty. I mean, the plimps are just not great at all, really. So plimps haven't been cleaned. That's number one. Number two, which is what I spotted straight off the bat with this, because the first thing I do when I power these on is just do some basic checkovers with the customer present if I've got time to do so, because I do like to look over these if they have been worked on by somebody else. And it's also a good way of looking over issues that stand out. If there's something stands out straight away, I can make the customer aware of the issue. Because as you can imagine, not all the time am I ever give customers a call when I find problems and there is, you know, they're quite not happy to hear the bad news. Do you know what I'm coming from here? So if I say, for an example, don't look at your arm assembly when you're here with me, and I call you up, you know, once the arm assembly's been stripped down or the initial check's been checked over, once I've stripped the arm assembly down, discover that 1 or 2 of your bearings are completely demolished, you know, top plates pushed in, pivots damaged, bearings either non-existent where they've all fallen out of the bottom assembly or in the gimbal, or just dented on the plate and the ball bearings can't move. If I give you a call and say, right, this is the situation with these arms, some people will have a tendency to go, but it was fine before I dropped it off. Well, you dropped it off to me in your car and this is what the situation is. You either go ahead and have the repair work completed, which isn't very expensive either, or you have them back how they are. It is as simple as that. So I like to check these things over. It eliminates that problem from ever happening. Different when you've got people sending things by courier, but that's another story altogether. It's bad enough getting people to listen to instructions to deliver turntables to you correctly, let alone what happens when they get to me here. But yeah, so straight off the bat, doing my initial check over with the customers, the arms don't feel too bad in terms of looseness. I mean, the actual, from the gimbal to the top support bracket and the pivots, you can see this moving. We'll go over this in a second, but doesn't appear to be any looseness or anything there. I did try and do a physical balancing on the arm. It does spring back to the rest, so I am going to take it for red that either they've had the pivots and the locking ring apart and they've either nipped it up too tight or they simply haven't touched it and there is damage. Or they've damaged it by over-tightening. That's very common. But both of the arm assemblies don't appear to be really overly tight. This one here, if I'm quiet for just a second, you may be able to hear this. Don't know if you can hear that or not. But there is slight movement on the left-hand deck. But again, these are all things that are going to be checked. But in terms of the pivot heights, this one here, the screw adjuster for the pivot is higher by about, I don't know, 0.5 mil, whereas this one here is actually slightly lower. I have a feeling that there are going to be problems with the bearings on this. The customer has said there are some issues along the lines of tracking, but we will jump into this when I do strip the arm assemblies down. That won't be on a video, I would have thought, but we'll see what happens. That's that. But the first thing I noticed after checking the arm assembly, it's the first thing I tend to look at when I power them on, is things like LED output, obviously pitch in terms of if the strobe dots match the matchings for the platter. Obviously, if you've got an aftermarket slider installed, which is what everybody tends to offer now, the 33 on E 3.4, sorry, spit your words out, Jay. The 3.3 on the plus and the minus end of the scale are not going to match up on the actual strobe dots in terms of the pitch trim. So what you're meant to have on here, as you can imagine, if you know what you're looking at, you're obviously going to know this, but the very top dot on here is going to be your +6. Second one down is going to be your +3.3. Then you have your 0 position, which is your lock, or Mark II. Then you get your -3.3. So when you move them in these set positions, depending on what model you have, if it's an M3D Mark V, for an example, you've got 6.4. But either way, you usually find that the plus area zone are the best ones to match up with a genuine slider, whereas on the minus end of the scale with a genuine slider, they can be a little bit finicky. Sometimes they'll match up to +3, could be a little bit higher, could be lower. It all depends how well these have been looked after, the wear and tear of the slider itself, if it's original, and it's just the way of the beast, unfortunately. And it can also be calibration too. Calibration's a big cause for problems like this. But first thing I noticed when I powered the turntable on, hit start and stop. For a start, can you see how much force that takes? It's very cushioned. It's almost as if the start and stop stem has been packed with grease. Because the other turntable, you'll be able to hear it in a second, is a lot freer. So that's not good. Okay, that's going to be stripped anyway. This entire area, the operation base, all ripped apart, deep cleaned, stems cleaned, re-greased, everything. New switches, the lot. These are the original tactile switches as well for 33 and 45, the internal tactile switches. The LEDs on both of these, when you look at them both together, again, you can't see this on camera unless I move them like this. You might just about make it out, but in fact, you probably can actually. So you can quite clearly see here, just by looking at the camera, that this is brighter than the left-hand deck's got a brighter strobe than what the right hand has. Even if you have it slightly under the camera where the other one was, you still see it is brighter. So the LEDs need to be replaced. I'm going to be replacing the LEDs to refresh these anyway. Get them nice and clean, keep them an original spec as possible, but they're going to be replaced. We'll have them both matching. The other thing that was also completed apparently was, I believe you said a lamp had blown, so they replaced the lamp. Now, judging from the two of these together, I'm not going to bother showing the other one here as well for the minute. They both do look the same. So whether they put a used lamp in there or they bought a brand new genuine, because the aftermarkets don't share the same output, I'll be interested to see what they've done when I take this apart to have a look. It could be either turntable. I'm not too sure whether left or right, but he said one of these has had the lamp replaced because it was blown, which is a common occurrence on these turntables, right? Now, this is where things get interesting. So tone arm assemblies on both of these. I'm going to show you this by looking at these where the camera's located. So the lock on this turntable, you can see here there is resistance when you're trying to move the lock, which is a good thing, okay? Probably was reason for that is because they haven't touched it. Whereas if you look at this turntable, see how much easier that is to move. You've got one that's free and easy. Even wanted to try doing that, I can't. Now, the reason I know that they've had that apart and probably put 3-in-1 oil or some cheap oil in there is also because of this. If I leave this and lock it, you can't push it and lock it for a start. But if I leave it to get it in a lock position, watch this. hardly any force getting that to move. The other one, rock solid. Now, if I turn it on the off position and move it, right, that entire arm assembly wants to move really, really freely. Again, the height adjustment is actually quite tough. And it's starting to free up when you move it. You can see it here, look. Again, it looks like they've just thrown 3-in-1 oil around the top. They got it to move, thrown some oil on the top and moved it a few times and gone, oh, that'll do it. This is the trap that people tend to fall into when they also have seized height adjusters, okay? When you've got a seized height adjuster, I see so many things online. I'm on the Facebook forums, as you can imagine. I tend to really not get involved with the forums, and I've explained this before on different videos, but without being nasty, everybody's an expert. Every trade's the same, whether it's bikes, whether it's cars, anything. Everyone's an expert. Everybody knows better. So I don't even bother to get involved. There's so many times on there I could quite easily write one comment and go, that'll solve your problem. Or don't touch that, you'll ruin it. You know, give it to somebody else. Give it to someone that knows what they're doing. But I let it all go. Everybody jumps in, gets involved. Everyone argues with each other. Everyone's got an opinion. And I just go, no, I'm not getting involved. But seized height adjusters, for an example, a lot of people tend to say on there, use a hairdryer. Use a heat gun, right? Biggest problem with this, yes, using a heat gun or particularly a hairdryer more than anything. Not right close, obviously, at a distance. Trying to give it, being a bit persistent, trying to move the height adjuster can loosen the grease that's obviously in there because it's petroleum jelly is what they used to use. And if you keep something in a set position after a period of time, X, Y, and Z amount of years, this will obviously seize and you won't be able to move it freely. But sometimes you get it where like this, you have the inner section that wants to move, or you have it visible where both sections move, or one or the other. So you can have it where the assembly base and the height adjuster ring are both seized together, or the actual assembly, tone arm assembly itself moves on its own with the height adjuster ring, but obviously won't move from here. So all different ways that they can seize, because you've got threads on the base itself. Height adjuster ring has threads on either side. Then you've got the assembly, which has the threads going around too. If one of them seizes slightly, it's not going to move. It's not going to want to move. So I wouldn't recommend using a hairdryer. Okay, the only real way to get this undone correctly is to take the arm out of the turntable and dismantle the arm. And the reason people tend to look at using hair dryers and doing things like that is because they don't want to pay the money. You know, they don't want to give it to somebody because they tell themselves, I can do that myself. Yes, you can. You can use a hair dryer in this and you can loosen it, maybe to get it back to zero. So let's be realistic. If you bought a pair of these and one of the height adjuster rings is all the way up to, say, 6 mil, right? It's like really high and the arm assembly isn't bent. You can see that it's okay. Then if you really would, I mean, even I would be tempted if I wasn't in the repair side of things. I would be tempted to go, well, yeah, if I can use a hairdryer and just loosen it down, I'll give it a whirl to get them both level, just to get you over the hump. But I would still want to get them in to have them rebuilt, serviced and repaired if need be on anything else. You know, if you're going to be keeping them long term, it's a temporary fix. And the grease, the petroleum jelly in the arm will still seize again. Give it a bit of time. Once you've left it in situ, it will just seize. Now, some people won't care about that and go, well, do you know what? They're set where I want them at, leave them there. But if you ever want to move it back at some point, it's nice knowing that they're going to be free moving. And this is why you take things in for a service with people. But yeah, so I wouldn't recommend using that. Penetrant oil is fantastic, but again, it will eat into all of the original petroleum jelly, the grease, etc. And it'll make it very, very loose, pretty much like this. It'll make the whole thing loose. So you'll probably end up actually, once you've done that, giving it to someone to have the arm assembly rebuilt anyway. So regardless of what you do, the end result will be, you know, spending money to have the work completed. But the arm assembly, like I said, when you move these, it's quite apparent that one of these has been touched and one of these hasn't, which just always worries me, because if they're putting overpacking start and stop assembly stems, what it feels like here, or there's loads of grease and gunk inside there, why haven't they cleaned this out? Why have they left this loose after rebuild with the wrong oil? I believe they probably put oil on there and they've not greased it, is what I mean. If they can't even do that right, then why touch anything? So that was a bit of a red flag with me. This shouldn't be this loose, okay? So we've got dim LEDs, tactile switches that haven't been replaced, a dampened start and stop button, which is either going to be loads of rave goo that's built up over the years that they simply haven't touched, and they've just foam cleaned over the top of the buttons, which they haven't done that either. They haven't even cleaned them. Either of these, they haven't cleaned them. So I very highly doubt anything's been touched here. So again, LEDs dimmer on the right turntable than the left. Either an overpacked start and stop button or just gunged up full of rave goo, grime and grease. No tactile switches have been replaced. Pop-up lamp has apparently been replaced. If you're going to replace the lamps and you're going to go over them, surely you do both of them, put new lamps in, give a warranty on that if you're going to do so, and re-grease these, get them to move up a lot nicer and smoother, like everyone wants with these turntables. Don't just throw one on and go, oh, that will do. Arm assembly has clearly been loosened at some point, like I say, because it is tough now, but it's very, very loose in terms of movement here, and the lock is extremely free moving. So I think this has had that heat treatment, loosened all the way up, dab of oil around it and screwed back in a few times and gone, there we go, that's the service done. Nope. This is what really wound me up. So the pitch controls, we'll start with the right hand turntable. So as you can clearly see here at the moment, we've got the 0 strobe is obviously going to be static. That's because the lock is on a Mark II. There's a physical indent on the board. It's locked, okay? So we have a lock at 0. Moving this away from the 0 position, we'll go in the plus region first, just to get the light turned off. Now you can see when I move this, how the LED, it was starting to move quite smoothly on and off, as in the LED was dimming. It's not now, but the slider feels like it's been repacked, which kind of makes me, again, look at how this feels here with the start and stop. This feels like it's been repacked. It doesn't feel like the left-hand deck. Even the left-hand deck feels lighter than the right. And you can see here it gets heavier. It's interesting. I'll find out when we take it apart whether they have even bothered. But 0 position, 0. We move it to 3.3. Well, for a start, plus 3.3 on this particular turntable, it's just under plus 2. And then if we move it, keep going down, let's go up to try and get this tight. So just trying to get the top strobe dot to stop moving. Roughly around, still moving here, roughly around, oh, that's doing all sorts of things now, that. Oh, that's, I'm going to say roughly around here. It's juddering quite a bit, actually. Plus 6 is at pretty much 3.3, because 3.3 should be roughly here. But you've got a plus 6 at just under the 3.3 mark. As you can imagine, that's not good. And also, I don't know if you could see this when I moved this recently. If I move this slowly, keep an eye on the strobe dot. I just noticed it twice when I moved it. It was jumping. I'll tell you now, that's going to be an original slider that has been stripped, and I'd like to say cleaned and re-greased, but they simply haven't calibrated this correctly. Either the pot on the pitch PCB itself, or the main board, or both. And I'm probably going to say they haven't done either, because that's just not correct. So you're giving a turntable back with a 3.3 as a plus 6, 3.3 position. Even with an aftermarket unit, your plus 6 should be down here, or further up here, not here. And you certainly shouldn't have your minus 3.3 on a genuine unit, a plus 2. What's the minus 3.3 looking like on here if I move this? Just over 2 as well. So complete wrong calibration settings on this turntable. The pitch trim as well. This is the original pitch trim. This hasn't been replaced. You can probably gather that by the state of this. This hasn't been replaced. It hasn't been cleaned. The shading cloth that sticks underneath the plinth stops, basically a dust guard that stops dust and dirt and grime getting into the pitch itself. That's the original. That hasn't been replaced either. And you can see it quite clearly even on the little screen I'm looking at on my phone, how dirty that actually is. And like I pointed out, I don't know if I did it at the beginning of the video or not, but there's no rectangular felt underneath the pitch knob. So again, just from this alone, what are you spending all this money for? They're charging the same price as what I charge. And what are you getting for your money? Badly rebuilt arm assembly, if they have rebuilt it. What feels like an overpacked stem on a start and stop button, or covered in rave goo, which is just as bad because they haven't cleaned anything. Dimmer LEDs. Lamp they've replaced on one of these. I'm not too sure which one, but they both look the same if you ask me. They haven't changed the pitch trim. I know the customer, I actually asked him about this. They didn't even offer to do so. The shading cloth hasn't been replaced. The rectangular felt is missing. The pitch seems to, I'm going to say, is an original pitch, but hasn't been correctly calibrated at all. You can't mix a pancake on that. You can't. The range has shrunk. It's terrible. What he's really got for his money is a pair of store-bought cables, which at the moment, if you can see this from here, you've got stag ring connectors. These connectors are actually pretty good, but I use very similar connectors. In fact, I use exactly the same connectors as these, depending on what turntables you've got. The connectors themselves, without the stag letterings, I buy the actual ring connector stag connectors and build my cables. But this is just a store-bought stag cable. I know these very, very, very well. I used to deal with these all the time back in the days when I used to work in DJ shops. And they do them in 3-meter cables. So what they're doing at the moment, well, I can guarantee now that they probably have these in stock on a regular basis because they are actually a retailer. Can guarantee now that all they've done is taken a 3-meter cable off the shelf, cut it in half and gone, hey presto, you've now got a cable on both turntables. But the stag cables as they are not really ideal for what you want. You know, a cheap service if you're going to complete things and explain to the customer that, you know, you got other options for better cables is great. They are durable and they're good connectors. Like I say, I use these connectors and the black ring connectors as well. Nothing wrong with the connectors, but these are stag cables. And the grounding cable is ridiculous. I mean, that's shorter. Can't get it up any higher. That's shorter than the actual audio cable. So not a good start, to be fair. Not a good start at all. So the next step now, we're going to get these turntables. We're going to get one of them as it is now. We're going to strip the thing down, have a look, get the pad out upside down and see what happens. So give me 2 seconds. I'm going to get all the bits out the way, get this turntable out the way, because there's no point showing you this one at the moment because it's going to be exactly the same in terms of functionality. Although, actually, before I do that, we will quickly just glance over this turntable because we have gone over the right-hand deck more than the left. But you can see on here how dirty all of this is. Okay, so again, turn the turntable on. We've got a brighter strobe assembly here with the LEDs, 4 LEDs in this particular unit here, much brighter than the right hand side turntable, as you can clearly see. Okay, you can visually see it here from the angles. Much nicer. Start and stop. That's what you expect, right? Even after a rebuild, you're going to get very similar to this. 33 and 45. These are the original switches. The lamp, again, straight up. Nothing wrong with that. A lot of people tend to do it, but I rebuild them, as we all know, if you're having them replaced. Arm assembly, like I said, this one's a lot firmer because that hasn't been taken apart. I mean, look, it takes 2 hands to get that. Look, Jesus, that's very firm. They haven't been touched. This one definitely hasn't been touched. That hasn't been apart. Pitch area, again, so 0% on the lock. Move it up the range, do exactly the same as we did with the other turntable. So moving to the plus, it's slowing down. Sorry, it's speeding up, not slowing down, sorry. In fact, no, it is slowing down. What am I talking about? Slowing down, stopping. 2 0 points. So we've got another 0 point at +1. So again, this shouts straight away at inaccurate pitch calibration, off by miles. So 0, another 0, as you can see. Now we're moving up the range. This is going to be a similar thing. I think it's going to be the other way around. So yeah, look, we're going past 5 at the moment now. So roughly around here. Wow. +5 is your 3.3. +6. Roughly around 7.5. That's shocking. That is shocking. What the other way, from 0 to 3.3. And then 0 to 3.3, you've got your minus 3 to nearly the minus 3.3 region. It's all calibration. Totally wrong. So yeah, both pitch controls are completely different to each other. So let's start off with the right-hand side turntable. Give me a second. I'm going to pause the video, grab the bits that I need, get this turntable out the way, and do this one first. Bear with me. Okay, so now here's the right-hand side turntable. Let's do what we normally do. So it's unplugged out the wall. That's the other thing as well. The power cable has been replaced on both turntables too. So they've done that. But the first thing we're going to do here is take off the head shell. So we've got an original Technics head shell Stanton V500 Mark II. The original Stanton styluses on them. We're going to take off the pitch knob with no rectangular cloth there at all. I'm going to take off the rear weight. Take off the lever lift and the lifting mecha itself as well. Lifts up the arm, being nice and gentle. And let's grab an electrical screwdriver. These are fantastic to do this. Carefully lining them up before you even attempt to turn. Making sure that the arm is not locked. Very important. And also that the weight has been removed on the back. So when you lift this up, you can see it's not just floating around wanting to cause havoc. And then carefully lift that out of the way. Lock it back in. The box not really doing much, but lock it back in. There we go. That's the area. Let's see how easy the platter comes off then. Oh, very easily. Let's look at the magnet. Nothing's really deformed or anything. Got a few marks and bits, but nothing out of the ordinary. There's no chips on the magnet. It's important to check this, guys, if you haven't. But yeah, with a bit of TLC, this is actually going to cut quite nice. That's the first thing. We'll stick this on the left-hand side. Basically, what I've got here at the moment is the workbench I'm working off today. I've got two different shelves. It's ideal, so I can see the camera, and literally where the camera is mounted. One row for parts that I'm taking out, and the platter top rows for the base and the dust covers, etc. So plastic cover, 5 screws for this. And in true Jason style, I wasn't planning on doing this video today, so my electric screwdriver is completely out of battery. So we're going to be doing all of these screws by hand, which I'm very, very happy about. Which, to be fair though, is not a bad thing. Yes, using an electric screwdriver is quicker, is much quicker, gets your work done quicker in terms of stripping things down. But it's good to do things with using a standard hand, a decent, good quality hand screwdriver, purely for the fact that if things are over tightened, or you can check if threads are broken and things, it doesn't make them as bad. You know, it's nice to do things by hand. So that's not as bad as I was expecting, but let's have a look in the inside. So, oh, lovely. Right, should we zoom in on this so you can all see it a bit better? Hang on. What we're also going to do, so the camera stops shaking, is bring my lamp over. So I've got 2 lamps on this workbench. One of them's actually built into the workbench. But if I turn the camera, there we go. Look at this. Right. The first little nugget I've just noticed on this turntable, look at the power cable. Look at that. What a beautiful job that is. So it's a good thing he's brought this in. So they've cable tied it around the positive, negative. And there's obviously one of the cables that goes to the actual on-off switch itself going to the fuse board. But this isn't the problem really, but the solder on that, the soldering's awful. So the first thing I'm going to do with this turntable, and also the fact, if I move this down, just so you can see this, ignore the thermal paste for the minute, but this isn't going to look like much to those of you out here that don't know about this, but as you can see, the thickness of this cable, right? This cable's standard thickness for a lot of things, like a figure of 8 cable, basically. Now, if I grab the cable that should have been on this turntable, let me quickly just get that there with me. Because I have plenty of cables here to give you an example. pause it for a second. Sod's law, the one time usually it's on show, I can't see it. Give me a second. There we go. Right, so I've just gone through the massive box of parts that are all going to be weighed in, and this is the thickness of the cable that would have actually been on this turntable. And the reason I know this is because of the scratch marks that are going around the relief grommet. That would have been forced in. So the relief grommet is much smaller than the grommet they've put for this cable. So to put this into perspective, this is the cable that would have been on this turntable. It looks like an old speaker cable, bell wire basically, right? But if you look at how thin this is in comparison to that. So the shielding's a lot thicker. Where I'm getting at with this is they've basically forced it in to a smaller hole. That's what she said, right? So forced it into a smaller hole. So the plate for this turntable, the hole itself for the relief grommet is obviously designed for the grommet that's on there at the moment, which is a lot smaller. Let's just zoom out again so I can show you all a bit better. There we go. Oh, that's even further out. No. There we go, right. Okay, so the grommet on this turntable is a lot smaller than what you get in the newer end of the spectrum of 1210s, 1200s. So the hole's smaller, the grommet is smaller because the cable is smaller. So where I'm getting at is they've forced a thicker cable in a smaller grommet into a smaller hole, which is going to compress the cable even more, make an absolute pig's ear of all of this. And what you should do is obviously remill the hole, put a bigger relief grommet in, but no, they haven't bothered to do that. So what I'm going to do now is clip the cable. Let's do this without getting into the camera. Clip off their nasty little cable tie. I say nasty, it's just a cable tie, but location's not exactly great. And cut away the power cable. You can see the soldering now if I zoom this in. You can see the soldering a little bit better as to what I was trying to explain if I actually reposition this. Soldering's not great the way they've wrapped this round. Now we'll zoom that back out again. That's pretty good on my phone with this. I've got a Pixel 9 Pro XL to do all this with. So I'm going to take off the shield for the cable because this is all going to be reused, but the cable's obviously going to be going in the bin. I don't care if this has been replaced or not. I'll be replacing this again with one of my power cables and it'll be done properly. But let's take the plate off. Yeah, let's take the plate off. Normally, if it was the other way around, you can pop them through, but you can't with this because they put it in upside down. And also the plate, which I just literally just noticed this, the plate itself is the wrong way around. It should be flipped, which is interesting too. So, right, there's 2 screws here. So let's cut this cable. This isn't going to be reused. They've forced that in. In fact, no, I won't force it. I'm just going to, there we go. Do it the quick and easy way. So yeah, the plate itself is the wrong way. Let me quickly just take this out and I'll show you what I'm talking about. You won't see this on camera, but what I'm doing now is getting a pair of grips and just pushing the 2 sections of the relief grommet together to get the cable out. Which isn't actually happening. Well, that's interesting. They've literally forced this in, so you get the idea. There's no movement at all. Give me a second. I'm going to pause it again. I hate doing this, but I have to pause it. I want to show you. Okay, so that's the plate off. So you can see now when I take this apart. So here's the relief grommet, which has been absolutely churned to anything. But you can see the size of that when it's compressed. If I take the cable out, that cable, look how compressed that is. But it's also the relief grommet. I don't know if you can see this here, if I get it into an angle where you can see this here where my thumb is, but you see the notch there. That's actually eating into the, yeah, that has eaten into it, hang on. Zoom in and tap. Come on. There we go. Right. That is even better. There you go. Look, that's eating into the sleeve. So the brown cable's visible. That's disgusting. And that, boys and girls, is why you make the hole bigger and you use the correct size relief bush. Because the size of the hole on that is much smaller than the diameter of this cable. And also, like I've just said, this plate, put us back to where it was, this plate should have been this way round. Now, I know people are going to go, oh, that's not the big deal, Jay, but it is when you think about it, because it was on there that way from factory and they're turning it round, and it also means that the cable's going to have, you have less cable coming out of your decks. Now, if you're doing one cable and you give them one turntable and they're putting your cable back on, they'll have to take the release bushing out and make the cable pull through more and then put the bush back on, which then means you're going to lose a little bit of cable externally because it moves more in, because you're going from here to here. Does that make sense? Because it's flipped around the other way. So we're going to do a distance here. It's going to be here. Doesn't seem like much, but it's meant to be this way around. So let's get that over here. That's going to be remilled. But again, just to sort of put it into perspective, that's just terrible. I mean, they've actually pushed it through, and yeah, that's really not good. I mean, it's going to cut through the cable. So that new cable they've spent that money on, it's only a couple of quid, I'd imagine, but still, it's made redundant. So that's going to be popped to one side. I'm going to be giving these parts back to the customer, because I'm going to make sure that he goes back and actually speaks to these guys about this. And I don't care if he mentions me or not, but I'm not going to do it on a video, mention them on a video. But these are all going to be bagged up and given to a customer, given back to the customer, sorry, including the relief grommet as well. So that's the cable off. Thermal paste is your usual mucky, awful grey stuff you tend to find a lot of people put on here. Again, use good quality gear. Don't mess around buying cheap rubbish that you're going to get on Amazon, eBay and all that crap. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. You're doing it for a living. Use the proper stuff. I mean, I use Electrolube is what I use. Fantastic gear, HTC gear, excellent. Absolutely excellent for what I use it for. I've been using it for years. But that's not good enough. Now, they haven't cleaned any of this. I mean, it's pretty apparent that they haven't touched anything on the board here at all. The diode on this particular one at the top of the board, the D301 there, is the original. They haven't done the resistor mod on here either. They probably don't even know about it, is the truth. That's why they haven't done it, which is why you shouldn't be touching them. The pot location on there is near enough at 3 o'clock. That's not right. Now, if I take a reading on the pitch, in fact, that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to grab, I love doing this. We're going to grab my cheap multimeter. I love doing this on video. So I was showing somebody this over the last couple of days when they came in. We'll stick it on 20K, show the lamp on it so you can all see it. Again, you haven't got to spend an arm and a leg to do this. Just do basic checks. This is like a $5's worth of multimeter. I literally only use that for capacitance tests. Sorry, continuity test from end to end, from the end of the audio cable to the end of the arm. Super easy. It beeps at you. Brilliant. Basic when people are here. But let's see if I can do this with the 2-terminal cut pliers I got on here. So if the grips, if I can get it round here, if it picks anything up, it might need to change the probes. It's worth a try. Here we go. So we've got 3.10K. I mean, starting point for pitch control calibration is 2.7K from the service manual. Now, granted, this particular figure was never changed from the service manual for 1979, even up to when they stopped making these decks in 2010. So there's no set, what I'm getting at is there's no set figure as to what you should set these to. Yes, the recommended setting on here for the service manual is 2.7K, but that was put on paper in 1979 and never changed. When they changed the boards from 20 to 22K, the resistance is going to change, which means you need to set your calibration differently to what it would have been before, because they're a different style board that Ouch used to provide. This is the same thing as well with aftermarket sliders. So you could say set your pitch on 0, leave it to the 0 position, set the pot on the board to 2.7K, and then you'll find by setting this particular pot here with the frequency cap, obviously that's not on 262.08, that's way too high, but when set correctly, you'll see it'll either be normally, say, oh, I don't know, a 2.7K of an aftermarket. You may find that your +6 is coming around near 5 or 4, which then you then got to either knock it back or knock it forwards, do 2.6, 2.55, or the other way around to shrink the range. It's all different ways of doing it, but where I'm getting at here is every turntable reacts differently. Now, it's very important when you install these sliders, if you want to make your life a little bit easier, if you're in the trade doing this, or if you're doing this at home and you're a bit of a hobbyist, the best thing to do is if you're buying these sliders, buy them and then match the ohmage of each slider. So I'm not going to tell everyone how to do this. I'm really not, because if you're in the industry, you should be doing this anyway. It makes your life easier. And if you're not doing it because you don't know, you shouldn't be touching them. But checking the ohmage of the slider and matching them as close as possible, or matching them to the same ohmage. So if you're buying these from a supplier, say for an example, and you're changing them on your own turntables, and you're obviously aware that the curvature of the slider from 0 to 3.3 on either end of the scale is a lot steeper, then yeah, ask them to send you two that are of a matched ohmage. And so obviously give them a few quid extra for doing it. Tell them you're prepared to pay, because it's not going to be a 5-minute job if they're prepared to do so. You know, they've got to go through all of their stock. That's hundreds of units just to find 2 of them that are going to be at the same ohmage. Now, I can't guarantee that everybody's going to do that, but some of the suppliers I'd imagine out there would already have batches of them. Now, if you're in the States, for an example, contact my good friend Christian over at 1200s.com. He supplies sliders, and I'm pretty confident that he will match the ohmage for you if you ask him nicely and sling him a few quid to say thanks. But that's a good way to start. So match the ohmage. So if you've got a pair that are both bought at the same time from the same shop, around the same age, there's a high chance that when you both set them at the same, you know, the same frequency, the same value, so frequency and value, they're both going to be, even if they're set incorrectly, they're both very closely mimic exactly the same. So if you've got one of them set at 2.7 or both of them set at 2.7, but they're showing the +6 at say +4, you know you have to readjust it, but the readjustment settings may be identical to each other. You just don't know. But that setting is, I'm put money on this being a genuine slider, but it's just been calibrated incorrectly. But yeah, the service manual was never changed. The settings are different. You should try them also at the M3D Mark V, the -3 slider calibration setting. That is what you're actually meant to do with these sliders now, but not aftermarket. You can't do that. There's a lot of things you have to try and amend to change to get things to line up a lot better. But you're only going to end up with +6, and then the 3.3 on either end of the scale, usually 2.5 for your 3.3. -2 for 3.3 and minus 3.3, best you're going to get. So yeah, we just established that the slider's not calibrated correctly, and the settings are more than likely going to be wrong. So next step now is going to be carefully removing the connectors for the wiring harnesses. This one's a little bit interesting. They've actually cable tied the wiring to the single brown cable going to the operation-based wiring harness. Again, nothing wrong with doing that, but it wasn't like that when you bought it, was it? So I wouldn't give it like that. I mean, I use a mixture of different ways of tightening things up. Harness tape, including different ties and things to get them undone, is a nice way of tidying things up and stopping this slop here with the cables from hitting the inner side of the plinth, which stops them from obviously ripping into the sleeving at some point and burning the lamp out, because that can happen. That is not coming undone. Come on, Jay. Let's carefully just cut that off. And you can see why I like using the snips. There we go. I like using the tool to remove them. That wasn't having it, was it? So that's, we've got this one here. We're then going to remove, that's coming out very, oh, what a surprise. There we go. So Didn't even need to use my little pointy tool for that, guys, because it's actually broken on both of the connector points there. So it's not even, it's being held in by the grace of God, basically. There's nothing stopping that from coming loose. Eventually that would have come loose if you transported this around anywhere. But at home, you're never going to know, hence why they got away with it. So they've broken that off. This is why I use a tool to very delicately, you know, push where they would be, to just push them in, to disconnect them. It's not uncommon for them to be tight, but that's not good enough. This entire area, so the wiring harness here for the operation base, so being the start and stop assembly, has the original cable ties on. Now, I know people rip into me on some of my old videos, especially the one that I did with Mojax from DJ City, where I was saying about there's ways to tell if people have serviced them, and I'm very finicky with what people do. But this is why I say this. So you had a black cable tie here, a black cable tie here as well, and you've still got the original milky white cable ties. It's just a way of knowing where things have been touched. So before you fly off the handle at me and go, oh, this guy's just massively OCD, doesn't know what he's talking about, he's too finicky. Just keep your mouth zipped and listen to what I'm about to tell you again. Black cable ties, you can clearly see they've been in there. You could clearly see that they've obviously put a new power cable on badly with the plate the other way around. You can see they've resoldered it on badly. You can see that they've also broken the connectors and things, and the way that they've moved it round, and the way that they cable tied that onto the brown cable is not factory. So you obviously know that's not standard. This is, and you can quite clearly see these are age-related staining on the cables. They're like a milky white cable tie, and they're tight on there. And the way that the cables are spanned around here, the way it bends around here, they haven't touched any of this. So there's a very high chance that this entire area may not have even been taken out of the turntable, because they can't disconnect it, because these cable ties are too tight for them to physically take that out. That's where I'm getting at with this. So I'm going to be very gentle, trying to move these back. There we go. It's the original cable ties. And this is what winds me up with the internet, social media and things, you know. People watch something once and make their mind up on somebody. I mean, in reality, all I'm trying to do is explain and help you all out, you know, and to spot bad things, basically, with your turntables that people have done. But they're the originals. They're going to get binned anyway. Now, for the first time probably ever on this turntable, since it's probably been made, is take out the operation base assembly connectors, being very gentle. Again, like I've just said, this is why I do what I do with this. Doesn't break anything. Fantastic. So we've got the wiring harness out the way there. That one's broken anyway. That has to be replaced. That's not good for my customer. And obviously the harness for the pitch is okay. Now, the next thing is get this upside down, get the base off the turntable, the feet off, etc. We'll do that now. So let me just pause the video again. I'll grab the parts and we'll get this done. Okay, so continuing what we were just going through now. So as you can see now, the turntable's upside down on its rubber pad. We've got straight off the bat here with the feet, we've got the felt missing on one of the feet. Now, again, not expensive to change these over. You can actually buy replacement felts, aftermarket felts, do a really, really nice job. And if you're going to do one, do all four of them. That's not good enough either. Why leave it like that? It's going to slide. There's no support there. Just goes to show what these guys actually think when they work on your turntables. And I hate saying things like that, but it's true. So no brakes in these feet, which is a good thing. So the rubbers do perish on these. These are a bit old. But for the minute, they'll be okay. If you ever want to change them, you can always spend the money and get replacement feet, but they're all right for the minute. Right, that screw is loose as anything. That's, in fact, I can probably take that out without even unscrewing that. Let's see. Yep, there we go. So the thread for the operation base is more than likely going to be broken. Guarantee the customer doesn't even know this. Customer won't notice at all. So let's get that in position. Let's get all these screws out. So have we got any missing screws? We've got a big hole here. What's this for? That's interesting. I very highly doubt they've done that, but that could be done by, that could have been done by a soldering iron. But why the hell would you have a soldering iron on top of the base? Your guess is as good as mine. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The outer screws are not missing. these screws are not missing. That one there's obviously broken the plastic threads. I'm taking it for granted that's broken the threads unless they put it at the wrong angle, but we'll find out when we take it apart. And we've got no screws missing here. The cable, oh, the cable clamp's put round the wrong way round. Of course it is. Why would I expect any less? So let's get the screws undone first of all. Get these all removed. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and the fourth one we've already taken off because that was already loose. You think you'd just leave that off, wouldn't you? If you really were going to be that problem with it, because you've got more of a chance of spotting it if you left it in place, because you get it at home, it's going to be hitting the top of the foot, and you'll get a phone call from a customer going, why have I got a screw loose? Most of my customers do have screw loose, but that's just beyond the point. But where I'm getting at is, you would have been better off just leaving that off and giving the screw back to the customer and saying to them that your threads are broken. But if you actually took your time and did things properly, you wouldn't be having to give that conversation to the customer, would you? That's just me. Maybe people won't agree with me with that, but so far so good with the screws, apart from that corner one, which is standard with a lot of these. We've got no, touch wood, we've got no cross-threaded or broken screws, but they have been undone before, so I doubt they're going to be causing problems. But at least none of them are missing. That's what I'm getting at with this. And this is where I wish I had my hand electric screwdriver all charged up. It is still charging, but you get me waffling on for a couple of minutes undoing them. I'm really interested to find out what that hole is there for next to this screw. It is literally, look, it's the same size as the screwdriver. It does look like a soldering iron tip. It looks like it's burnt. It does look like it. We'll see what that's looked like inside in a minute. But right, that's all the screws removed. Let's get this base off. Get the base out of the way. There we go. Literally just lifting that's going to move the camera slightly, guys. Sorry, but it's the only way that I can do it. Right, okay. What do we got here then? So the first thing I'm going to do here is cut this cable off, because this is just going to annoy me. The clamp, the actual inner section of the clamp is in situ on here, so at least they actually put that back on, but this has been put around the wrong way, and I will be checking their solder work after, but that's going to be going back to the customer. I'm sure he's going to want all of this back. Me, once this has been completed, I would be wanting my money back from the shop. Now, I did notice this previous, when the customer did drop this down. I forgot to mention this, but I think one of them or both of these decks has loose plates. Yep. That one's not great, but this one, super loose. And again, how hard is it to get a screwdriver, line it up nice and neat, and give it a few turns? I mean, this is all going to be coming apart when I do strip it to clean everything anyway, because I take the sockets off and put the screws in after I clean the screws to put them loosely back together. And the sockets tend to be the last thing that I put back on the turntable to then align the hinges for your dust covers. But see what I mean? It takes all of 2 seconds. Well, how loose is this one here? Again, you can see you moving the top of it, so I'm not bullying you. That's a million times better. Then what I'll do is I'll loosen these screws, because people tend to wonder why, after you tighten them up, or why they are a little bit forceful trying to take them out once they've taken the base screws out. It's because you put more force onto the plinth, and it doesn't want to come off with the weighted section. So by undoing these screws slightly, in fact, I'm doing a little bit more than that. By removing them slightly, it makes things looser and a bit easier to remove. So they do get forced upon the top of the plinth if you're not careful. So we'll remove now the screws that are holding in the weighted section. So you've got one. Also see if there's any missing or anything. 2. 3, 4, 5 and 6. What I spotted as well while I'm doing this, that the operation base thread is indeed snapped and broken, and that the broken section that should be in there is on the back end of it. So they have actually snapped it and left it in there. But there's the screws for the weighted section. We'll put them away. We'll lift up the weighted section. That comes off much easier than you expect once you've done that. Lift this onto the back end here, which moved my camera even more. Sorry, guys. This is completely unplanned with the way that I said it. Let me just move and bend this slightly. That's better. That won't happen again now. Let's move this at the right angle. Sorry, everybody. That makes life a little bit easier. We'll then put this lamp here, because there's 2 different lamps. Right, okay. Where should we start with this? Let's start at the operation base. If I move this down slightly, zoom the camera in, say, what we got, 5 or 2? Let's do it at 2. What are you doing, Jay? Come on. Right, so as you can see here, this is your operation base. We'll bring the lamp around here so you can see it a bit easier. There's your thread. That's what's broken. So the screw, the corner screw, like I say in all of my videos, the only section that tends to be made out of plastic on a lot of the later end models, or newer end of the spectrum, Technics turntables, the threads on the actual base itself, the operation base, are made out of plastic. So when you thread these in, if you screw these in and you over tighten, this is what happens. And it snaps the plastic. And that, as you just saw there, was just literally pushed in with the weighted section. So they snapped it when they put it back together. And it's not like you're not going to know you haven't broken that. They snapped it, knew it was snapped. Screw would have been loose in there like you saw. I could just lift the thing out. And instead of taking the base back off, because they put all the screws in and probably couldn't be bothered to remove it, they left it in there broken. Truth be told, with something like that, because of how clean that brake is, what I'm going to try with this, I mean, apart from epoxy, I don't really want to start epoxying that in, but you can see, depending on how bad that is, I may even try plastic welding that back together, because normally these are a snap flush in 3 or 4 pieces. Because we've got a physical large chunk of plastic here, I will try and plastic weld that. We'll keep that to one side. I'll do that at a bit of a later date. So that's the first thing. So that may be salvageable. And again, we've got it on camera so you can all see. But yeah, so switches haven't been changed. These are the original tactile switches. I can tell by the soldering. None of this has been touched. None of this has been touched. There's no cable ties or anything, or no remnants of an old cable tie or any compression there on the wiring. The lamp has been out on this turntable. So this, in fact, this would be the one that's been changed. So I can see, 1, they've broken the wiring harness tape, and 2, I can tell by the soldering. So let me just, that wasn't even very tight. So yeah, this is definitely the one that's been off. Let's just put this back to how it was, get the lamp back out the way. Take the lamp out. I don't like how they've left all the wire here either. There's no surprise there really. I don't really like a lot of bits that some of these guys do, but so just to recap on this, they've broken the connector tips here that push it into the connector socket. Yeah, the rubber's not perished on that, which is a bit of a surprise. We would have expected that really, but that's not bad. Is this the one they've soldered? I can't really, do you know, I can't really tell. I can't really tell, but it looks like it's definitely been out, obviously. In fact, no, it would be. It would be this one, because they've actually, the sleeve that goes through the lamp, that's not there anymore. They've removed the sleeve. There's a lamp in there. Okay. It's not as bad as I was expecting, but still. That's another thing for the list. Right, okay, let's get that off of there. Yeah, the adhesive's all okay for the surround for the pop-up. Next thing, let's have a look at the pitch. We'll get the pitch out. Oh, great. I thought I had my hand on the screw, and nope, there we go. So that's that there. And the arm assembly's just decided to come loose on there as well. Lovely, brilliant. Right, so that's the pitch out. So let's have a good look at this pitch control. I mean, it's absolutely filthy for a start. It isn't like it's just light dirt. There is literally, it's caked in dirt. They haven't touched it. They haven't touched any of it. That's all original. Let me zoom into this. Right, so these solder points on here, guys, this is all original. Zoom back out just a tad. It's a bit too much, isn't it? Yeah, the way that the LED's angled, it's exactly the same remnants you get on here with flux after they've soldered in the potentiometer. Yeah, this is all original. They haven't touched any of this. I mean, you've got little remnants here. No, actually, no, they have. Yeah, of course they have. They've reflowed all the solder. That's why everything looks the same. Come on, Jay. No, they have reflowed it, because you can see there's little remnants here of little blobs of solder, and it's absolutely filthy. And if you look to the side, I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not. If you look very, very carefully, see if I can get it under a lamp. If you look at, you see the legs here, this is what I just noticed. If you look at the legs here that compress the housing for the pitch control onto the board itself, most important part of this. I don't know if you can make that out or not on the camera, but they're raised. They're not completely flush. They've opened the slider. They've definitely opened the slider. I can tell there's a couple of bits there. Yeah, I might even take that apart on a video to have a quick look with you. But they've definitely had that apart. So they've rebuilt it and they haven't calibrated it correctly. But they haven't even bothered to clean it. That's absolutely disgusting. So why even bother? What have they done? What have they done? What was the reason to undo this and remove it if you're not going to... There's no point in cleaning the board if you're not actually going to clean everything else for it, surely. But that baffles me. We might have to look at that. Right, moving on. So the wiring harness tape for the arm assembly hasn't even been broken. So the arm assembly's never been out of the turntable unless they've removed the screw that holds in the PCB. Should we have a quick look? I don't normally do this on these videos like this depth, but we'll have a look. So we're at just over an hour with this video. I might do, so I'll do them both in the same video. Right, so that's that. Them out of the way. Let's get my flat tool. Pause it for a second. Don't everyone see how I do this, because some people will try and copy me and it makes things nice and easy. Right, yeah, sorry, I had to pause there because a lot of people don't understand how you remove these plastic shots correctly. And this is exactly why. So I don't know if you can make this out, but you can see how scratched and churned this is here. And also the intersection here of it too. I just don't understand how. The cable's the correct diameter for this deck. So how can you but it is the wrong way around. So we'll get into this in a second. So put that to one side. Let's undo the two screws. Yeah, sorry for not showing everybody how I undo that, but I may have done that on some older videos, but I've got to the point now of, there's some things here that I know there are people that watch my videos here that I just do not want watching them. They copy a lot of bits that I do. So I'm being pretty careful. But either way, there's the plate. So the arm has the arm been apart? That's the original harness tape. Oh, that's interesting. So that's pushed in there. It's the original solder for the wiring. Ah, well, I was going to say that's not the worst I've seen, but this here, if I just zoom in the other way, look at here. That is barely holding on to that. And you can see, look, I'm just literally just touching the board, in between the board and the cable. I'm moving that, wiggling it. This is what I mean when they haven't rebuilt it properly. Just leave them alone. Leave them alone. So yeah, that entire area is going to have to be obviously worked on. Yeah, it's not the worst I've seen, but that's not good enough. That's very close to touching as well, the green connector there. That's the original wiring harness. In fact, this really annoys me as well, because what I tend to do with these is actually shorten the cables. If you've got this overlap of cable here, a lot of the older boards, they have an area where the cable can be looped around, and then the harness tape goes over the top. I don't worry about any of that. I'll change the board over, put a newer board on there, shorten the cable down, strip them down slightly, and then solder them on there so the cable isn't just loose and flappy. Because what can also happen, which this will also make sense to you as well, is when you put the cable on, it's even worse actually the wrong way around, because the plate will be up here above the cables, and when you screw them in, there's a chance it can hit the cables here and actually hit the wiring for the arm. But it's very important that you put these around the right way round. Very, very important. But for me, you're a bit of OCD, I wouldn't leave it like that. That's a bit of a bodge as far as I'm concerned. None of this has been touched. This is all original. So why is this so loose? They've obviously rebuilt something here, because it doesn't take any movement, look, to move the arm. We've got loose screws. I think it's just going to be a case that the thread, yeah, the grease on this is non-existent. They've loosened it right up and there's no grease. It's not packed with anything. You can physically see the movement, you can hear it. That's all going to be rebuilt. So what I'm going to do now is rip that through here, pull that there like that, and just take the tone arm out of the turntable. And what I'm going to do with the second turntable, I'm going to record a video, but I'm probably going to do it tomorrow, because we're just over an hour now, and I've gone pretty in depth, more in depth I think, on this one than I normally do when I strip these down. But I know I've got a bit of a tendency to waffle on and not stick to what I originally wanted to talk about. So what I might do is we'll do this turntable today, and then I'll record another video tomorrow. But there's the arm out of the turntable. I'll put this over here. But yeah, the worst of that would be that the arm cable was the wrong way around. They left the wires all sloppy, and the soldering wasn't the worst of sin, but the way that they soldered the right hand negative leg on, no, it's not good enough. Right, so let's take the operation base out of here, shall we? So we've got one screw here, two screws here, one screw here, one in the middle. So we've got four that remove the actual assembly itself, and one that holds on the switch. And it's very important that you do not over tighten that, because if you over tighten the one for the switch, it's game over. You've got to glue it into place, and you're not doing that in a hurry, let me tell you. A lot of people glue them into place, a lot of people try and cable tie them in. There is nothing to hold it onto. It's a plastic thread. If you break that, it's going to be going straight in the bin, the tiniest of threads. So we'll get that out of the way, get that here. That's that. 2, 3, 4. Okay, lift that out. There you go. So this is a classic example of someone that has literally just has left it in place, hasn't touched anything. So they give it a clean or whatever, an absolute load of rubbish. It has never been touched. You can quite clearly see here by looking at this how dirty the entire assembly is, including around the strobe tower itself. And it's not exactly hard to get any of this off, even just using an old cloth. It wants to come off. It's not like it's ingrained on there, but they haven't touched any of it. So this is the one with the slightly dampened start and stop assembly. Now, I think this is literally just rave goo that's got into here. It's just wear and tear. I mean, yeah, you look at the side here, how dirty that actually is. I wouldn't be surprised if there's loads of dirt and grime that's got into the stem, and that is why it feels the way it does. Either way, that's another issue solved with this one here. We found out what the problem could be on here, but it hasn't been cleaned or touched. It hasn't been stripped down. And the, like I said, the thread's broken here for the corner screw, and the tactile switches definitely haven't been touched because this has never been out of the turntable. Let's get that to the corner as well. Next step with this is going to be, we'll turn it the other way around and we will have a look. We will have a look at the main board, shall we? Give me just a second. So first things first, we are going to unscrew the regulator from the board, clean up all the nasty thermal paste. Now I may have to pause the camera again, and the bloody thing, my tip is literally, the tip of my screwdriver has dropped the screw. Beautiful. Give me a second, guys. I'm going to pause the camera. We'll do what I was going to do. I'll move this. Give me 2 seconds and I'll find my screw as well. Unbelievable. Okay, carrying this on then. So, as you can see now, thermal paste has been loosely removed. I'll go in depth with this when I do physically get onto the nitty-gritty of the board, when I do solder the board, service the board and reflow the solder. But yeah, the other screw, you probably just saw me drop the screw, it dropped down onto here. What I'm going to quickly do while I've got you here as well is just remagnetise the bit. It happens on the odd occasion. It's an expensive screwdriver and expensive bits, but on an occasion it does get to a point where you have to remagnetise the ends on them. It doesn't matter how much you bloody spend on this stuff. It's very annoying, but you probably saw it drop down here. I didn't see it, I was too busy looking at the thermal paste. But right, so let's get the 3 main screws removed around the motor area. Yep, there we go. Ugh. Then what we'll do is remove the 3 screws, top right, bottom left for the main board, which will then loosen the main board from the turntable. Again, these are very, very handy videos, these, when I do them. I know we're stripping things down and looking at problems, but it's good to use as a reference if you're going to be stripping down a turntable to, say, I don't know, have the plinth powder coated or have the plinth resprayed, or even if you're sending it to, like my good friend Sam, for an example, having them resprayed over at Pimp My Decks. You know, you could literally just take your turntable apart and go, here you go, Sam, I'll send that over to you, do a part exchange deal. You know, and it'll send you out a plinth. So you can replace your own plinth and then change over your thermal paste properly, right? But it's very, very handy if you are going down that route. You know, if you want to actually... I wasn't wanting to turn that. I wonder what's going on then. It's very handy if you want to rebuild your turntable. You can look at the video in reverse and get an idea. Now, if we lift the board slightly here like that, with the spindle, there we go. This removes the transformer. So we've got one screw here that you saw as I was talking that comes out completely. This screw here comes out loose but stays in place, and as long as you're careful, all of these stay in place, including the rubber bungs that sit underneath. Sometimes they don't want to. You have to be very careful. We'll then put this back into place. Lift it up slightly so the switch is out of the way. We will then give us a bit of a wiggle. Lift that up like so, including the switch. Come on, Jay. Including the switch. And get the mainboard out of the way for 2 seconds. Look at the spindle. To do this with a lamp so you can actually physically see this. I mean, it feels loose. It looks like I've just put oil on the top of this again, the same as I did with the arm assembly, because it is very dirty still. That needs flushing through. It needs flushing through. The bottom of this is dirty. They haven't cleaned any of it. And you can see here's all the remnants here of the original paste on here when they put them in from factory. None of this has been cleaned. Look how dirty this is. No, it's just rubbish. That's rubbish. So that hasn't been touched. Right, let's get this out of the way. bring the main board into the equation. But like I said, so the pitch trim on this is the original trim. They haven't even offered to replace this for the customer. And then the shading cloth on here is original. Harness tape here was already broken. I had to break the harness tape here to remove the cable. This is all going to be removed when I put this in. But yeah, not a very good start, is it? Let's get my pad out of the way. And then next on the list, like I say, is we're going to quickly look at the main board. So we'll run this in here and see if there's any obvious spots on here that need to be attended to. So if I now zoom this all the way to 2 and then move the lamp around. So, okay, I'll try not to get in front of the camera with this, but hopefully you can all still hear me. So none of this has been physically touched. This is a good thing and a bad thing, okay? So you pay the money to have service work completed, and in the end you don't actually get a service at all. You just get someone loosely change a few things over, which I'm still trying to work out really what they've actually done, other than change an audio cable over, really. And the power cable, obviously. So, you know how I say I have a lot of these turntables like the Franken-Decks where you have different shades on the boards, you can have different pots, and things just don't look right, okay? This particular pair here, these haven't been touched. We know they haven't been touched, and we know that the fact that the operation base where the wiring harness for that was connected with the cable ties and the way it came around here, we know that this has never been apart. So the windings here going to the fuse board to the main board, this is all untouched. This is all from factory. So it's a good thing. We know they're a matching pair, technically, fuse board, main board, okay? Soldering here is just awful. This is all going to be reflowed, and then the actual older cable that I've snipped, this is all going to be removed. The Hakko desoldering gun is going to be going on here with some deflux, get rid of all of this rubbish, clean up the terminals, and then when I go back to put the turntable back together again, obviously the cables will be much, much better and soldered on cleanly. My cables, not some cheap and nasty thing that was thrown on there. Didn't look too bad actually, but the soldering is awful, right? That's that. So off the bat here, can I spot anything that hasn't been touched? Well, the first thing I will notice, I mean, apart from the obvious with the diode, like I explained, was the thermal paste. Now, they go through the motions of changing the regulator thermal paste, but they never, everyone does this, they never ever change the thermal paste on the actual, the motor IC. Now, I don't know if you can spot that or not. You can probably just about see it if you look here. See how the thermal paste is white? I can see it very clearly, but I don't know if you'll be able to. But the thermal paste hasn't been touched. There we go. Can you see that? So that's the original thermal paste. So you're bringing it in for a service, you're taking it in to have everything done, and they haven't been bothered to do that. So the thermal paste hasn't even been touched on the IC. Now, thermal paste is only good for X, Y, Z amount of years, and it should be changed. Good quality thermal paste you may find will last you realistically off the shelf. Good quality, 5-7 years, right? Now, I know that these things are workhorses and they keep going and going and going, but if you've got to understand that this thermal paste has been on here since the turntable was made. So we've got a GE3B serial number turntable, if this is from this, if they haven't changed it, which I doubt they have. So this is going to be a GE3, so either a 93 or a 2003. And that's going to be February of either date, or either year, right? So regardless, this hasn't been changed. The thermal paste hasn't been in there. It's been in there since day dot, from 93 or 2003, and should have been changed and at least cleaned. So that hasn't been touched. Now, the intersection here, I don't know if you could make that out before I touched it, but again, this hasn't been touched. None of the stat has been touched. The diode hasn't been replaced. Capacitors are all original. Ceramics and the electrolytic ones, they're all the original. And this is the bit that really winds me up. This really winds me up with just about everybody that offers service work and never does what they should be doing. If I zoom this in again, so you can see this. Right, now everybody knows whenever I talk about a turntable and you've got problems with, say, runaway speed error issues, like I call them, where you've got problems where you turn the turntable on, the deck will spin 1,000,000 miles per hour, your LEDs either stay on, turn off, etc. This is usually the root of the problems. My shaky hand, Jesus, Jay, come on, get around this way. I suppose it's this way around. So yeah, the main root of the problem can be Q201, which is this component here. So it's here. if I can find it on the board for you, right here. You see it under the camera still? No, you can't. So Q201, camera zoomed in still. That's why you can't bloody see it. Hang on. This is why I need to get an area specifically for my videos. So you go, can you see this? No, you can't. So transistor here, big rectangular blob. This is the part that causes the problem. Then you got your 3 solder points here. 1, 2, 3. If this is loose and the solder is cracked, it can cause the issue. Very, very common. Hasn't been reflowed. The solder isn't loose. That's a good thing. But where I'm getting at with this, I mean, I reflow everything. Every single area on the board will be reflowed, cleaned, defluxed, everything, right? But you at least resolder and reflow the weak spots. There are parts on this board that I'm spotting, which to me, like here for an example, to me, and there, parts here that if they're not going to cause you problems now and here, they will do at some point down the line. They've done very, very well to still function in the way that they have up until this date. Really, they're still working, so you can't say that they're faulty. Just badly served or badly calibrated pitch. But it's a good thing that my customer has brought this to me, because this would at some point cause you a problem, especially there. That hasn't been touched. So in a good way, it's a good thing, because it hasn't been touched and means that I can do the work for my customer. And we know that when we get it back to my customer, that everything is going to be functioning as expected, as it should be, with everything correctly calibrated. And it's a bad thing for the fact that my customer has spent all this money and had nothing really done. All I can see with everything that's been completed, if I get this out of the way, being realistic with you, is this. You've got an aftermarket stag cable, 3 meter stag cable basically. It's been cut in half and put on 2 turntables, and the grounding cable has been replaced. A new power cable, which they've, you know, the relief strain on the cable has been eaten into, which again, I'm not going to show you again because we know it's there. In fact, here it is. There's the relief on the cable where it was put on there, and it's obviously broken through to the cable because the relief is too small and not made for a cable of that diameter. So we've got a cheap £3, £4 power cable with a figure of 8 connection that they would have cut off and just stripped it and stuck on, which is nothing wrong with that if you do it properly. Cheap cable, probably a tenner's worth of stag cable, because I know these guys very, very well, because I know the guys that used to remake these cables and the guys that make them. So tenner's worth of cable, a grounding cable, a power cable. That's been oiled and is filthy, the spindle. Pitch control it does appear to have been taken apart. And in fact, I'm going to do this quickly now. Give me a second. I'm going to pause the video just to show you this. Okay, so I've just desoldered the board from the PCB. So let me just zoom in again for this. Get this rubbish out of the way. So this is what happens when you spend £5,000 on a good desoldering gun. So as you can see, all of the points here are nice and clean in terms of there's no solder left behind, and I can literally now lift that out without any worry from breaking anything on the board. No pads, no nothing. Again, pads dirty, being finicky with it, but yet pads dirty. Harness cable, I mean, again, they're on there nice and tight, but I do not like the angle of that. It's not loose, it's not going to break, but still I'd be straightening this out and soldering that on nice and straight, and I would have spotted that. Even if it was on there from factory, I wouldn't be happy with that. This is what I was talking about with the slider. So look how dirty this is. If I get a screwdriver and just undo, I don't usually do this on videos, do I? But as we're going this deep into having a look, we look at all this, look. Now, you got to think this was given to these guys for a service back in summer of last year. And this was dropped, both of these turntables were dropped off to me the week before Christmas. Now, it is an original slider, 100% an original. It's an N11. That's an original slider. Hence why the green LED was staying on longer than expected from 0 to 0, just past the 0 point. So it got a longer throw at 0, but that's filthy. Now, if you look at the angle, of the legs, because what happens is this board, basically the outer casing, the housing itself, these legs bend outwards. If you were to rebuild this, you bend the legs out, you lift the board out, clean the board, put it back together. They have definitely, this has definitely been out the turntable, because you can see by the angle of the legs. And in fact, if I look at these dead on, and if you look at this dead on with the lamp over the top, you can see where they've bent them and the angles for them, like these two here. Now what I'm going to do now, very quickly, is remove the board from the said slider, and we'll see the condition of the board. I'm going to do that without pausing the video, because I really don't want to be doing that every 2 seconds. So give me just a second. These were super easy to remove because they've been undone before, so there's an easy way of doing this. And again, I'm not going to show you on video, purely for the fact of someone's going to go, oh, that's a good idea, we'll do that ourselves. I'm sorry, I can't keep doing that. That's not how business works. I'm sorry. Right, okay. So the slider pins have now been bent upwards. This isn't going to be used anymore anyway. So now at the moment, the truth is to have a look at the slider. Jesus. What have they done to this then? Why remove it? Do you know what I'm starting to think here? I'll give you my honest opinion on this. I'm not going to blame the shop for the condition of this in terms of the dirt and dust. Not for the fact they shouldn't have done it. I'm not getting at that, but I think, because I know he hasn't had these from new, I think this is the original from new. Someone's been in this and cleaned them and put it back together. It's been years of grime build up on this, because you can see it here. I mean, the shop hasn't touched them. So yeah, they appear to have been removed, but the shop who he's given these to simply hasn't touched them. So this makes things even better, right? Not better for my customer, but it just gets better and better. Where I'm getting at is, look at all this crap, look. Hasn't been touched. So right, going back to what I was originally saying, you've got a spindle that's had a little bit of oil put on it. That's why it's a free moving, where it's been soaked through. A little bit of oil on it, but hasn't been stripped. Nothing. Not cleaned. Brass is all filthy. Hasn't been polished. You've then got a pop-up assembly with a wiring harness connector that's got the two nibs snapped off either end. No excuse for that, and they've definitely done that. That's if this is the one that's had the lamp removed, which I think it definitely is, because the wiring's a lot stiffer, more rigid, and the cover is not there to stop the wire from hitting any of the internal spring sections. So this is the one that's had it removed. They've damaged it. They should have left it alone, right? So they've changed the lamp and they've broken the wiring and the connector for that. So that's the one thing that the customer reported with it. He asked them to replace. The arm assembly, again, not going to cause too much thing with that, but they've basically put oil on the rings and haven't done any work with that at all, haven't stripped it down, haven't cleaned it. You've then got the operation base. Again, they haven't cleaned it, haven't stripped it down, and they've broken the thread on there. Quite clearly broke it, because you saw the part that was inside the turntable when I put it back together. You've then got the main board as well, which obviously has parts that haven't been reflowed. The board hasn't been touched at all. Thermal paste hasn't been replaced on the motor IC. They've replaced the thermal paste on the regulator transistor, but it was way too much on there. And in my opinion, not good quality thermal paste, but that's just me. So in reality, he's paid all this money, the same amount as what I charged. He openly said this is what they charge. And all he's actually had to gain, I say, from any of this is exactly what I'm about to show you. See if I can think of anything else that I can put on there, because yeah, this is all I can think of, guys. All the money this customer spent with this said business, and what's he actually gained out of this? He's got a Stag aftermarket audio cable that would have been brand new because they've got retail stock of these. A new grounding cable. So these they're new but badly soldered. The broken connector nibs on the actual wiring harness, but we've got a lamp that works, but the rest of it isn't done properly. And a power cable, which is nearly split all the way through because they tried putting the original release bush back in there. The hole's not big enough and the relief bush is too small. So after all the money spent, the only thing I can think he's gained from it, if he had no audio before, he would have had audio, but not great, and a working lamp, whereas the lamp wasn't working before. A £10 cable, probably 15 quid's worth of lamp, and a £3 power cable. And that justifies spending and charging the customer what I charge. That's just unacceptable. So we're going to leave it there with this video, guys, but I feel really bad for this customer. He's a really nice guy. Says he uses them a lot as well. Also, they don't just repair turntables, do all sorts of things. But I'm really surprised with this. I'm looking forward to doing the second video. I'm not looking forward to it because poor customer. I haven't even looked at the arm assembly and the bearings or anything yet. But still, this isn't a lot of money's worth of parts, but he's spent all that money. He's going to do it again. And maybe some parts on top that are needed. All because the shop didn't do what he asked them to do. And waited all that time, 6-7 weeks before he got them back. And like I say, I'm not going to go mentioning who these people are. But it is quite disgusting, really. And I've never gone around and made out that I'm better than anybody else. That's not me. I just do the job that is asked of me and make sure it's under the best of my ability. I don't give anything back that's been bodged. You know, it's been done properly and you're happy. I would never do anything like that. Certainly not with the power cable. And to be fair, that's dangerous. There's nothing funny about that. That's dangerous. It's eaten through to the cable. That could have shorted. They shouldn't be touching turntables. They should be stick to do what they do at the moment. There we go, guys. Well, keep your eyes peeled because I'm not going to do it today. It's taken an hour and a half, this video, so I'm looking at the counter. I know I've rabbited on for a little bit and I apologise, but we've gone into a bit more detail with this deck, haven't we? Keep your eyes peeled. I'm going to record the second video tomorrow and get that updated as well. So that'll be on there at the weekend. But thank you for watching. If you are looking to have your turntables properly serviced, not like this, then please feel free to fire us over a message on justtechnics.co.uk on my website. And you can book it on there too. March date's already on there, fully booked until March. So if you do want to have your turntables worked on and you're based in the UK, please feel free to book in and I can get issues like this remedied for you. Thanks very much, everybody. I'll see you all tomorrow with the next video for the second turntables. This is turntable number 1. Turntable number 2 will be tomorrow. Thanks, guys. Take it easy.